Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. We started our course with the title of Monetary and Fiscal Framework in Islamic Finance with the code of MBF707 from the ComSat Institute of Information Technology Virtual Campus, Islamabad. We discussed a number of topics. We have been discussing in the last lecture Musharakah, its applications in real life and its significance with the perspective of Pakistan economy, particularly in the framework when Pakistan is on the verge of growth and confronting with a number of challenges. Musharakah can play a significant role. A number of projects can be launched, a number of investment projects can be started with the provision of Musharakah, wherein many investors can participate and private-public partnership can also be launched, which can be very helpful in the completion of mega projects in Pakistan. In the last lecture, if you remember, we discussed in detail how energy crisis can be overcome, how energy-related projects can be launched with the coordination of private-public sectors, and the infrastructure can be developed in Pakistan, and the other industrialization processes can be completed with the coordination of private-public partnership using different modes of finance, including Musharakah. Musharakah is one of the leading mode of finance in Islamic financial system. Very quickly reviewing, in the last lecture we discussed as to the specifications of Musharakah. We introduced different terms which are commonly used in Musharakah, legality of Musharakah in Quran and Sunnah. Then we discussed different definitions of Musharakah. One definition we discussed from Maulana Taqi Usmani's book Islamic Finance, and the other definition we discussed from practical researchers' point of view who are very much in the field of research related to Musharakah. In terms of application of Musharakah, we discuss project financing, import financing, export financing, and some other examples in detail. In today's lecture, we'll continue the concept of Musharakah, its application, coupled with the concept of Mudarbah, another mode of finance. So our focus in today's lecture will be mostly on Musharakah and Mudarbah and its applications in the real life. Continuing with the Musharakah and moving on to the concept of Mudarbah. What is Mudarbah? Mudarbah is a kind of partnership. One person gives money to another for the purpose of investment. Now these two parties, when we say one person, it can be one party and the recipient can be one person who is expert in the management, who has developed his management skills in the field of business which is to be launched in coordination with the Rabbul Mal or financial. So when we say one person gives money or one party gives money, who is that one person and who is that party? In finance, this person or this party is known as financier. Why he is or the party is known as financier? Because they arrange finances for the purpose of investment and for the launching of business activity which is to be started with the help of managerial skill of another party. Now in the management, when we say managerial skill, it means some other party is involved. So basically, Mudarbah is partnership of two parties. One is enriched with financial resources and the other party is endowed with management skill or technical skill of the business. There are a number of examples which can be quoted. In the previous lectures, we discussed the case of business graduates or the economics graduates, those who have studied theoretically what is economics about, how businesses are launched, how feasibilities are prepared, and how economic activities, business activities can be started. But these graduates or these potential entrepreneurs lack financial resources. So how this financial constraint can be overcome? Islamic financial system has given us one provision, and that provision is in terms of the party who can provide these finances. Now, these finances can be provided either by an individual or group of individuals, relatives, friends, or some specialized institutions which are meant for the provision of finances. In technical term, in fiqh, the financier who is also potential investor is known as Rabbul Mal. Rabbul Mal, the person who has got mal. Mal mean finances or resources. And in Arabic, it is the person is also known as Mudarbah. And the fund utilizer, who is the fund utilizer? The management, organization, entrepreneur, the person who has developed his skills to start a business, to run a business, and he has some experience. He has already done a couple of activities, business activities, for which he is well known. It is preferable but not essential. If a person is expert, definitely he has more chances to get finances from Rabbul Mal. And if a person is new, for example, the fresh graduates from business or fresh graduate in engineering degree, they are not very much expert, though they have studied all the possible theories during the 4 years degree, during the 5 years degree, 17 years education, depending upon their years of schooling. They have learned what are business activities about, how businesses are prepared, launched, and run, what are the profits, how the revenues and the costs are managed. But practically, they lack experience. In our society, in Pakistan economy, there are so many financiers, there are so many rich people who lack skills. And on the other side, there are fresh graduates who are in search of a job, but preferably they want to start their business. Although there is great risk involved if the finances are provided to the fresh graduates. So, financier generally prefers the person who has some experience of running business on his credit, because the risk is minimized, the risk is mitigated. That is why the experienced person is preferred to the fresh graduates. But there is no harm in starting the business at small scale level if financier step forward and they come to the front to provide finances to the fresh graduates. I think there's no harm in it. At the small scale level, a number of businesses can be started. In this arrangement, Rabbul Mal generally does not participate in the management side. Management is totally the activity or the assignment or job of the person who is known as Mudarib. As I mentioned earlier, the fresh graduates can be Mudarib, or an experienced person who has developed the skill of running business can be Mudarib. Some practical application why Mudarbah can be a useful mode of financing in Pakistan. Dear students, tomorrow you will be the graduate. Now some of you will be employed, some of you will be searching for the job, and some of you will be exploring your own avenues to start business activities. And the main constraint in starting business is finance. Now, the increasing unemployment in the Pakistan economy and in the Islamic world in general, and Pakistan in particular, increasing unemployment can be controlled, it can be converted to maximum extent to the self-employed situation. What is self-employment? A person starts an academy at very small scale level. He is graduate and he starts his academy in his drawing room. Now, no finances are required basically to launch such business activity, such education activity. And he can launch, he can gather some money, he can educate students of different levels, and after collecting this money, he can start his own school, or he can develop a partnership with someone else. Now there are two options for him. If he has planned to pursue the education sector, if he has decided to start his own educational institution, obviously drawing room is not a sufficient place to start the business. And if he wants to launch his own education institution, he needs finances, because he will be hiring a building, he will be hiring a small house at the basic level, economic unit. He can hire a small house of 3 classrooms, 2 classrooms, 4 classrooms, but he cannot afford to pay rent, or he cannot afford to buy the house, which is very expensive these days. So what is the solution? The solution is he should arrange money. Now there are different sources, the private sources, the public sources. In terms of private sources, he can borrow money from his friends, relatives, or he can provide them incentive that he is going to launch a school wherein if his friends and relatives provide funding, then according to mutual agreement, in case of profit, there will be distribution of this profit according to some agreed formula. The formula which is agreed upon between the two parties. One party includes his friends and relatives who have provided funds, and the other party is the person himself who has developed his experience of teaching students. Now gradually when this activity grows, when this activity develops, he needs more money. Why? He wants to have more teachers. He wants to hire more teachers because he himself may not be the sufficient person. So instead of involving himself, teaching all the time, he controls the management, he maintains the office, looks after day-to-day activities, and monitors how the teaching is being done. But for these activities, again, if he hires more teachers, he will have to pay them package. Some salary will be paid to these extra teachers, additional teachers. Now, in order to pay, obviously, he needs money, although he will be earning income. But in order to expand, he may ask someone to provide more money. Now, on the private side, again, he may ask some of his rich friends and relatives to provide money. Now, this is the second stage of development. This is the second stage of growth of his business, which is in the field of education. When he started this business activity, he did not have money at all. So his friends and relatives, one of his friends, one of his relatives provided funding, and he continued his business. Now, till this point, this was Mudarbah arrangement, because he started his business, he started his academy or school, but he did not have money, he had skill. So either he hired someone else and he controlled the management, or he himself continued teaching, but he received money in order to meet the expenses of the building and the other running expenses like electricity and so on. But the second stage, when he reached the second stage, when he has grown up, he has gathered some money, he has earned some money, he has some saving. Now he wants to further grow. He wants to hire a more spacious building where more classrooms can be run, where more students can be enrolled. Now for this purpose, obviously, now he is not the only management. He is not the only person who is Mudarib. Now he is Mudarib as well as financial, because he has got money, he has gathered money, he has earned money, he has some saving on his pockets. Now he can share this money in the business by asking some more investors. Now the other investors can be his colleagues, can be teachers who can engage themselves not only in terms of finances but also in terms of teaching some of the courses. Now, if this is the case, that the two parties or the three parties join together in terms of finances as well as in terms of their services in teaching, now this will be the combination, this will be the blend of Mudarbah and Musharakah. Now the situation has developed from Mudarbah to Musharakah. So such arrangements can be done. This is just an example of education, because nowadays education sector is grown up and many investors are joining this education sector as a business. And we have so many private schools, we have so many educational institutions at the inter level, graduation level, and even a number of universities are functioning in the private sector. Now, in order to start a university, of course, a huge amount of money is needed. Now here in the management, more people can be engaged. So there can be more Mudarib. And similarly, on the financial side, it can be one financial institution, it can be one party, it can be more than one party. So more financial can join this start of the university or higher level education center or higher level education institute. So students, this is how the business is start with the help of, with the provision of Mudarbah, and then it can be developed into Musharakah, and it can be the combination of both Musharakah and Mudarbah. We will discuss in detail these situations, how profit and loss will be shared if a person is Mudarib and at the same time he is also a partner or the shareholder. Dear students, continuing, Mudarbah versus Musharakah. What are the points of difference between these two in practical life? The first point is, from the perspective of investment, in Mudarbah, financier provide finances and the management provide services. Whereas if there is Musharakah arrangement, in Musharakah, two parties or more parties share finances. They may also share the management, but it is not necessary, because the partnership or Musharakah can also be started by the contribution of finances, but one of the parties or two of the parties, if there are more partners, may be sleeping partners. Number two, participation in management. The partners may participate in management, may not participate in management in case of Musharakah, as I mentioned earlier. But in case of Mudarbah, the financier does not participate in the management. He is only the financier. He is only considered as Rabbul Mal. He provides finances, and then the rest is the responsibility of the Mudarib or the organization or the person who is running the management. Now, how loss is shared if there is loss? If there is loss in partnership, in case of Musharakah, I have also explained in one of the earlier lectures, but since here we are now comparing Mudarbah and Musharakah, so there is a need to revise it again. So, sharing loss. In case of Musharakah, the loss is shared according to the contribution of finances in the business. So, if the two parties have shared their finances with the ratio of 40-60, the loss will be shared with the ratio of 40-60. And if some other proportion has been followed, if finances have been contributed with some other proportion, then the loss will be shared in accordance with the proportion or with the contribution of finances. In case of Mudarbah, if there is loss, this loss will be borne completely by the financier, because Mudarib does not contribute any finance. Since Mudarib does not share finances, therefore he does not share the loss. But something is lost on the part of Mudarib. For example, he will not be receiving the reward for his services. So his services go unrewarded. So this is how he shares a loss. Liability. In case of Mudarbah, the liability is limited. When we say liability is limited, suppose the funding was provided through loans by the financier, then he will be the responsible person. He is the party who will bear the liability of paying loans or returning the loan or finances which were borrowed, which were arranged by the financier, and these finances were later on provided to the Mudarib. In case of Musharakah, the situation is different. Here, liability is not limited, it is unlimited. It is unlimited in the sense, if there are more shareholders, more than two, maybe two or more than two, then any finances or any debts which are arranged for the business, then all of them are responsible. All of them are responsible. And if there was an agreement between the parties that no extra loan will be arranged, and there is one partner who somehow arranged this loan on his own, then he will be responsible. But in normal circumstances, the liability is unlimited in case of Musharakah. Number 5, appreciation in the value of the assets. In the business, fixed assets are also involved. A machinery can be purchased. Buildings are purchased. Some other assets are purchased. Now, according to the market conditions, with the passage of time, if the value of the asset grows up, if the market value increases, then this appreciation of value of the assets again will be shared among the shareholders. We will discuss further detail about it later on. What are the different types of Mudarbah? Musharakah we have already discussed in detail in the previous lectures. What are the different types of Mudarbah? There are two main types of Mudarbah. Mudarbah al-Muqayyada and number 2, Mudarbah al-Mutlaqah. Mudarbah al-Muqayyada in English, which is known as the restricted Mudarbah, and Mudarbah al-Mutallaqah is also known as unrestricted Mudarbah. Muqayyada, as is obvious from the name, it is confined to a specific business. When financier provides funding to the Mudarib, he specifies the type of business, the location, the products which will be involved in the business activities, the goods which will be produced or the services which will be generated and provided for sale. And Mudarib is bound to follow these principles. Mudarib is bound to remain within the constraints. He must be specific to the products which have been allowed to be produced or supplied, and the services which have been agreed between the two parties. Only those services can be provided. And if Mudarib changes his mind without taking financier into confidence, then he will be the responsible person. He will have to face the consequences in case of any problem occurring to the business. This is known as restricted Mudarbah. So in restricted Mudarbah, in short, the location of the business is specified and Mudarib is bound to launch business activities at that place, at that location. If a building has been decided that if the building has been decided to launch business, and financier has clearly specified in terms and conditions that the business will be launched and will be carried out at such and such place with such and such conditions, then Mudarib on his own cannot change it. This is known as Mudarbah Muqayyada. Similarly, if financier provided funding for certain machinery, certain type of machinery, to be employed for the business purpose, and even complete specification of the machinery are given. Machinery made in so and so, made in such a country, locally made, foreign made which countries. So these things are made very clear in the start of the business when financial provides. So if such things have been specified, such things have been clearly defined, machinery has been clearly defined, timings of the business have been clearly defined, then Mudarib cannot change on his own, and if he changes, he will be the responsible person for the consequences. The second type is Mudarbah al-Mutlaka. Mudarbah al-Mutlaka, which is known as unrestricted Mudarbah. Now, what is unrestricted Mudarbah? Excuse me. In case of unrestricted Mudarbah, financier provides funding without any precondition in terms of location, in terms of the type of business to be started, in terms of timings, in terms of machinery or anything else which is employed in the business activities. So anything associated, any decision associated with the business, if not clearly defined and specified by the financier, and it is left completely on the Mudarib to utilize money for the purpose of business, buy machinery made in anywhere in the world, or hire building anywhere in the city, or anything else. If the launching of business, monitoring of the business activities, location, choice of location, the choice of anything else which is involved in business activities is left to the Mudarib, it is totally on the decision of the Mudarib, and financier gives full liberty, Rabbul Mal gives freedom to Mudarib, then this is known as unrestricted Mudarbah. Dear students, I hope you understand now the difference between restricted Mudarbah and unrestricted Mudarbah. Now the next point is another type of Mudarbah, wherein the number of Mudarib can be one, the number of Mudarib can be more than one. It is up to the financier. If he thinks that one person in the management is not sufficient to run the business because of the complications of business, because of the nature of the business, as I gave the example of starting some educational institution, the person can, a Mudarib can function as a principal, as a top management in the school, and someone else can be hired as another Mudarib who monitors, maintains some other activities. This can be done. This is another type of Mudarbah. So on the basis of number of Mudarib, we can classify, we can specify another type of Mudarbah. Again, in order to avoid complications, in order to avoid any untoward situation which may be created later on when the business activities start, in order to avoid dispute between the two Mudarib or three Mudaribs, or the dispute, any possible dispute or issue between the Mudarib and the financier, it is essential that everything should be noted down, everything should be written down, everything should be prescribed, specified, the formula for the distribution of profit must be clearly defined. What proportion will accrue to which mudarib? Mudarib number 1, mudarib number 2. In what order the duties and the responsibilities will be performed. Again, this is some type of restricted Mudarbah in terms of duties, location, and then the profit, the share in profit is also decided according to mutual agreement. But please remember, in Musharakah and Mudarbah, the profit is not tied with the capital. It is according to the agreed formula. We will discuss later on some complications involved in this matter. So I hope you understand as to Mudarbah, wherein one Mudarib is involved or two or more Mudaribs are involved. Dear students, before we discuss how profit is distributed in Mudarbah, let us understand the significance of more Mudaribs in Mudarbah as a mode of finance. In today's life, in today's complicated life, where it looks as if the life is very fast, economic activities are complicated, the traditional fiqh is not clear about the issues which the modern business activities are facing or confronting. There is provision of having two Mudarib or more Mudarib. For example, marketing is now part and parcel of the business activities. Again, continuing with the same example of university. You know, if you start university or you start any other business, if you start any education institution or some other business activity or some manufacturing unit, there is need of the time to involve some people in the marketing of your business activities, because marketing plays a very important role. Some specialized people can be hired to manage these activities so that the commodities, the business, name of the business is made known to the people, common man, so that the people come forward, people are acquainted with your product, your business activities, the nature of the products which you are supplying, and people should be encouraged to buy your products. Now, these marketing activities, of course, within the limits of Islamic teachings, can be managed, can be launched. For this purpose, we need specialized people, and that can be one of the Mudaribs. Another thing in the business, you know, when businesses grow large, when we start, for example, our manufacturing plant of cars or any durable items, washing machines or anything else which is durable good. So for such items, another thing which is required, another aspect which is very important is the specialized people who technically guide the workers, who technically guide the people who are in the top management. They can also be hired as Mudarib. For example, they can guide about the specialized machinery which can be employed, the technical things which can be done in order to avoid losses in order to control the risk, possible risk, in order to mitigate risk to the minimum level. Now this is the need of the time. So for specialized services, the experts are needed, and these experts can be engaged as mudarib in the business activities, in the manufacturing activities, or in any other sort of financing. So multiple mudarib is basically need of the time, and there is no harm in hiring more in employing or in engaging in the business activities more than one mudarib. Now, profit distribution in Mudarbah. Dear students, definite profit ratio agreed by mutual consent is must. No particular proportion has been prescribed by Sharia as to the formula for the distribution of profit. We do not find in fiqh as to how the distribution of profit will be done, whether the ratio will be 20-80, 30-70, 50-50. So no such specification has been given. We do not find any prescription for the distribution of profit. It is totally left to the mutual agreement between the parties. It can be 40% for Mudarib, it can be 60% for the Rabbul Mal, or it can be in reverse order. Now it depends. The two parties can understand well the nature of business, techniques of business. They can realize, financier can understand how difficult it is to manage the business, and he understands that he alone cannot run the business. He doesn't have time, he doesn't have skill, he doesn't know when, where, how the business can flourish. So he is totally dependent on the management, and the management which is known as Mudarib. If this is the situation, obviously financier has to sacrifice more in terms of profit. So that is why in daily life we also observe the people who are employed in multinational, they earn millions because they are paid in terms of dollars or in terms of euros. When they are earning this money in Pakistan, converted to Pakistani rupee, it makes huge sum. Now they cannot keep this money idle in their accounts, in their saving accounts or in their bank accounts. So that is why, and naturally in Islamic countries, people are motivated to invest idle money, the money which otherwise will be kept idle, due to different reasons, due to moral obligation, due to religious obligation. In Islamic world, the Muslims, even in the non-Islamic world, if people are saving, they don't want to keep their money idle. They want to invest this money. But these people are employed somewhere in the multinational companies. They cannot give up their job, because if they give up their job, they don't know how to utilize this money in different avenues for the purpose of business activities. Then what happens? They search for the potential managers, the mudaribs, one mudarib or more mudarib, and they hand over this money to these mudaribs. And in Pakistani different cities of Pakistan, what is happening? The businesses are run according to the agreed formula between the financier and the mudarib, and they are running this business. Financier is satisfied and he continues this financing of the business activities because he understands that if this money is left idle in the accounts, this is not good for him. This is not good even from religious perspective, because Islam is a dynamic religion. Its teachings are dynamic. If money is kept idle, obviously zakat is to be paid, and idle money is generally considered as leakage, and leakage, adversely affects the business cycle or the business activities. So the whole business cycle is disturbed if the leakages in the economy increase. So savings must come back to the economic activities, normal business cycle. And this is not only advantageous for the individual, it is also beneficial for the economy as a whole. Dear students, that is why under such arrangements the businesses are being run. I have seen a number of cloth shops, the garment shops, where financiers do not participate in the management. They have simply arranged finances, provided this money to those who know how to run this garment business, how to buy unstitched cloths and convert it to the garments or suits or some other apparel, or any ready-made garments, or there are shops where the unstitched cloth is also sold, and the financials are generally the Rabbul Mal who are employed somewhere else, and because of the good opportunity, because of good job and lucrative earning, they are able to save more, and they are providing these savings, and these savings are channelized in the business activities, and the business cycles are running more dynamically rather than being pessimist in the economic activities. So it has very high significance in the economic activities of daily life, particularly these days when there's a lot of competition and we cannot afford, no country of the world these days can afford to keep money idle. So every country, every individual, every region, every leadership must have a plan to utilize the static money, convert the static activities to dynamics. And Mudarbah can be very useful in this context. One example has been quoted here: lump sum amount of profit is not allowed. In Mudarbah arrangement, we cannot allow financier or Mudarib or one Mudarib or two Mudarib or any one of the three parties, any one of the two parties between the Rabbul Mal and Mudarib, we cannot allow a fixed share in profit. For example, if Rabbul Mal has provided capital worth 100,000 and Mudarib asks for 10,000 fixed from the profit, and rest of the profit, if earned, if remains, will be distributed according to some other formula, this is not allowed. Similarly, another type of profit, instead of specifying the amount, the Mudarib cannot also claim a certain portion of the profit as a prefixed other than the formula which has been agreed for the distribution of profit. Similarly, Rabbul Mal also cannot fix it as a proportion of the capital. He cannot ask Mudarib to provide 20% of the capital, 30% of the capital as profit. Dear students, this is a brief discussion around the distribution of profit in Mudarbah arrangements. Some other points related to profit distribution in Mudarbah are: Mudarib cannot claim any periodical salary in addition to the proportion of profit. Mudarib, because the distribution of profit is according to some agreed formula, and if Mudarib realizes that the financier is helpless, he is not acquainted with the management skill, he is not equipped with the skills to run the business, he may exploit financier. So such exploitation, in order to avoid such exploitation, Mudarib cannot claim any periodical salary in addition to the proportion of profit. Yeah, some of the Mudarib in our society, they exploit financier. And the reverse cases, the reverse examples have also been observed, wherein the financier try to exploit Mudarib. Dear students, similarly, business trip outside own city by Mudarib can claim for personal expenses, accommodation, food, etc. But if he is engaged in the activities within the city, he cannot claim, he is not allowed to claim all these expenses. But if he is on business trip out of the city, out of the country, and all this is for the promotion of business activities or for normal business activities, since his business trip is likely to contribute towards the growth of the business, he can ask for the refund of expenses which he incurred while being on trip abroad. So whatever personal expenses, the daily expenses, food expenses, living and traveling and other expenses, laundry or some other expenses which he incurred during his business trip, he can claim. He can claim the refund. And all these refunds will be made from the business. If there is loss, if business activities are such that at certain locations the business is incurring loss and at some other places the business is enjoying reasonable amount of profit, then what happens? Before the distribution of profit, the losses which are made at certain places will be adjusted with the profit, and the amount left over, the remaining amount, will be considered as a net profit, and this profit is then divided or distributed according to the agreed formula between the Rabbul Mal and Mudarib. Next important point related to the profit distribution: the partner who has expressly excluded himself from the responsibility of work for business cannot claim more than ratio of his investment. I think this point is very clear and does not need further explanation. The partner who has expressly excluded himself from the responsibility of work, he does not involve himself. The person who does not involve himself in the business activities, he cannot claim more than the ratio of his investment. Dear students, Mudarbah, there is different of opinion about Mudarbah. Mudarbah can be terminated shortly after the start of business activities. At what time Mudarbah can be terminated? Will it continue indefinitely? Will it continue for the longer period of time, the short period of time? What is the minimum time period? Now, these things, there is difference of opinion on such things. But according to Hadith, the Holy Prophet ﷺ says, all the conditions agreed upon by the Muslims are upheld. So if at all there is a need to terminate Mudarbah agreement, then all the conditions agreed upon by the Muslims are upheld, except a condition which allows what is prohibited or prohibits what is lawful. So we have to take care of these items, these important sayings of the Holy Prophet ﷺ while terminating the Mudarbah agreement. It can be terminated at any time, and if there is need to terminate Mudarbah, then the notice must be served by the either party. Suppose Mudarib is not satisfied with the business which was launched some time ago, some time before, and he thinks he can flourish, he can grow, he can earn more if he works somewhere else, if he works as Mudarib with someone else in some other activity, in some other business. Then he has to serve the notice, and the Mudarbah will be terminated according to the agreement of the two parties. But there is difference of opinion. Fuqaha have different opinion on it. Some of them say if Mudarbah has started, then it should not be terminated immediately, because it will create trouble, issues between the two parties. So let it do some completion of work, some maturity period should be defined, and once the business gets mature to that level, then if necessary the Mudarbah should be terminated. But the others Fuqaha say while serving the notice, the Mudarbah can be terminated any time where the two parties agreed to terminate it. Now if Mudarbah is terminated, then how the assets will be distributed? So first of all, asset will be converted to cash if they are not in cash. As far as cash is concerned, that is clear. There is an agreement, there is an agreed formula which has already been written before the business was started, and that cash will be distributed according to the agreed formula. But if there is non-liquid asset, then this needs to be liquidated first, and then the distribution of finances will be done according to the agreed formula. Dear students, our next topic is combination of Musharakah and Mudarbah. How does it work in the real life? So far, we have discussed in today's lecture, we started Musharakah and Mudarbah as modes of financing. And we discussed what is Mudarbah. I briefed about Musharakah from the previous lecture, and what are the requirements in Musharakah, what are the requirements in Mudarbah, and how the investment is arranged in Mudarbah and how it is different from Musharakah. Participation in the management, we discussed that in case of Musharakah, both the parties can share the management, but in case of Mudarbah, only Mudarib is responsible for the management and the financier generally does not participate in the management. Then we discuss how the loss is shared in partnership, which is Musharakah, and how the loss is shared between the two parties in case of Mudarbah. That is, one party as Mudarib and the other party as Rabbul Mal or financier. Then we studied the nature of liability. In case of Mudarbah, the liability is limited. In case of Musharakah, the liability is unlimited. And if asset involved in the business activities are valued, their value, market value increases, then accordingly the share of finances are also increased. We will discuss one example in the next lecture. We studied different types of Mudarbah. One, restricted Mudarbah. Restricted Mudarbah mein Mudarib is not allowed to go out of the specifications which have been agreed between the two parties, financier and Mudarib. So he cannot start any activity, he cannot decide about the business activities, location or machinery, hiring, firing of different items, purchase of different types of raw materials on his own. He is restricted to what has been clearly agreed between the financier and the Mudarib. In case of unrestricted Mudarbah, however, the Mudarib has liberty to change the location, to choose the products, raw material, purchasing of machinery, and so many other decisions can be made by Mudarib. Then we discussed the possibility of more than two Mudarib. Then in the end, we discussed how profit is distributed in Mudarbah. In Islamic fiqh, in Sharia, no formula is, no clear proportion has been specified. There's no number which has been given. So it is totally up to the two parties or more parties to decide about the proportion according to which the profit will be distributed. And it can be 40-60, it can be reversed, 60-40, depending upon the agreement which has been reached and signed on a legal paper between Rabbul Mal and Mudarib. And then certain limitations we discussed related to Mudarbah. For example, the lump sum amount of profit is not allowed, neither it is allowed to Mudarib, nor is this allowed to the Rabbul Mal or the financier. And how profit is distributed, we discussed different possibilities. And then in the end, how Mudarbah can be terminated. And if Mudarbah is terminated, then how the assets will be distributed between Mudarib and the financier. I hope this was a useful lecture for you and you must have enjoyed it. This is very much practicable and can be started anywhere in any part of Pakistan. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.